Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Here is another round of our daily discussions on some very burning topics of the day. Recently, SIF News produced a blog on the state of affairs in Andhra Pradesh. You all know that the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh is a Christian and he has been following a Christian agenda, replacing, demolishing, destroying Hindu places of worship, and also appointing Christian personnel in institutions of Hindus. Now, BJP's Sunil Deodhar has been campaigning in the state against this, but ironically at the same time, there are quite a few BJP-ruled states where the Hindu interest is not being upheld. So we would like to know from our distinguished panelists today the two different aspects to this affair. One is, of course, a very hostile regime that is in place in Andhra Pradesh, in the state of Andhra Pradesh. And the other is disconnect. While the BJP purports to stand for Hindus, and it quite fiercely campaigns for it also before the elections, once it is in power, we see a certain kind of disconnect, as we saw in Varanasi, where the corridor for the Kashi Vishwanath temple is being broadened. And in the process, a lot of medieval and ancient temples are getting destroyed. Recently, even the Akshaya Vata got destroyed there. Not only that, in Uttarakhand, another BJP-ruled state, we have seen that ignoring, or rather defying or challenging the long-standing demand of the community to free all its temples in the name of the Char Dham project, even such temples that were hitherto free have been usurped by the state. So to discuss this, we have three very important panelists today. I'll introduce you to them one by one. Welcome to the show, Ramesh Venkatraman. You are an old face on SIF News. You have been contributing with your views and very articulate ones at that. Urvi Singh is the next panelist. She lives in Uttar Pradesh and she may give us some insights into what is happening in that state, from which we actually expect more because Yogi Adityanath is ruling there. We also have with us Mr. Ajay Sudame. We are waiting for his connections to be set right. Ramesh, I begin with you. Please deal with both the aspects. One is a hostile regime in Andhra Pradesh, and the other is the governments from which we do not expect hostility, namely BJP governments, and what is happening in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, to be precise, but also in certain other states where exactly the Hindu interest is not being upheld. Yes, Ramesh.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that we'll have to go. I think while there is one part of the governments being hostile, or when it comes to Hindu festivities, Hindu festivals, or Hindu cultural aspects, I think there is no difference between in any government specifically. You could say in terms of degree, the Jagan government may be more vicious in terms of its ultimate goals, but in terms of attacking this, because what is at the center of it all is this woke culture that tells people. For example, I work with a lot of students from schools, colleges, as well as postgraduate students and all of that. In terms of our youth engagement, consistently, and even if you go into rural Karnataka, urban pockets, it's not just urban pockets. There are several programs that are conducted right before Deepavali, for example, where students are told about the harmful effects, so-called harmful effects of crackers. It's as if just in these 3 days, the whole country is going to be, is going to come down in smoke and all of that. And and children are given pamphlets which they take home, and they are told which inform the parents about the need to be careful about firecrackers, about giving up crackers, about how bursting crackers is not part of Hindu festivities, and this is done. So Deepavali is one example, but across the board, you will find that the attack is primarily at the next generation, where children are being converted into these woke citizens, and it's as if all of us are sleeping and they alone are, uh, you know, awake and understanding this. But this happens only with, for example, we had this Saint Mary's School in Gurgaon, I think, where it was. And
Yes, yes,
I just read today that Saint Mary's was only a name, and it's not even a Christian institution. They felt that having a Christian name would mean that they would get more admissions. So that is the state we live in. We seem to think that not being projected as Hindu is the only way to be accepted in a modern woke world, and therefore all of these attacks are happening. I think, and fundamentally, and in 2014, Dr. Harshvardhan was one of the first who held up that banner up in the, held up this banner saying, "Let's not burst crackers." So
yes,
I don't,
yes,
yeah. So I think at a fundamental level, we have to understand that there are at the core of it are certain governments, certain people like Jagan or other governments that are uh, focused on destroying the Hindu cultures, Hindus themselves. And there is also this, governments like the BJP government and all of those who, appear to be supportive of Hindu causes, but want to cater to a woke demand, for lack of a better word. I think therefore we caught between the hard and we were caught between the devil and the deep sea. In that sense.
right. Right. So, Urvi, when we were discussing the program, and you said that you would like to cover a whole lot of states that are going anti-Hindu. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, hi, good evening to all of you. Surjit, Dada, and Ramesh sir. Hi. So there has been, I mean, me as a Hindu, I talk about myself personally. So the point is, when I elected the BJP government, all right, I thought that yes, we need we will get some change. This, as Ramesh sir actually mentioned, this whole uh, idea of criticizing Hinduism and criticizing all its practices, they'd go, or at least the government will say something or do something other, to kind of invigorate the Hindu spirit. But what we see right now is actually dastardly, and it's heartbreaking for me as a person who's voted for the BJP, primarily because of the silence. I mean, right now, we saw the Bangladeshi Hindu genocide, and our Prime
Right.
Minister did not
Yeah.
speak a single word on that. Single word. I mean, and that was going on during, I think, the Shera. That's one of our major festivals, and our brethren are dying. They are being killed. Our vigrahas are actually destroyed. And what does the Hindu Hriday Samrat do? Nothing. Nothing at all. Instead, he wishes, Eid ul Nabi, some sort of a greeting, an Islamic greeting. He goes on to say that, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, I don't know, I'm so angry while I'm speaking this. Then, of course, the Hindus that were killed earlier in October, I think, in Kashmir. We all, became very nice. Oh, Article 377 removed. Wow, we'll all, buy lands in Kashmir. But what happened? You put Hindus as scapegoats in Kashmir, and then what did you do? Did you even acknowledge their deaths? You did not. I mean, the government did not. And then also, I mean, let's go back to the anti-Hindu riots in Delhi in 2019. Modi did not say a single word. The same thing happened, during the elections when their own people, the BJP karyakartas, they were being killed.
Right.
Hindus were being
Right.
butchered day in and day out, and not a single word by our prime
Ramesh,
minister.
so coming back to you, a very frequent, or maybe Urvi too may take the question, which is that on the one hand, the chair, the office of the prime minister comes with certain responsibilities. uh, he perhaps cannot speak as freely as we can. But then we are not asking him to condemn Muslims. We are asking him to stand for Hindus, which is certainly something
Exactly.
that he can do,
Yeah,
something that he can do without going politically
And
incorrect.
yeah. I
and
think
that was precisely
I
why
think
he was elected, I think, you know.
yeah,
We all know who
Yes,
elected Prime Minister Modi.
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. There
Yes,
are a couple
yes,
of
Manish.
couple of points. One, we all thought, and I am also one of the victims of having voted for this government in that sense. We all thought that we were voting. See, here is a government that has come to power on the back of Hindu votes, and therefore the expectation that they do something for Hindus. Today, if you look at it, no matter what they do in terms of appeasement, you will find that election after election, you will find that they're not getting the votes of the minorities. So they're not getting it,
Yes,
and they're not going to get it as well. So given that, it's surprising and also not surprising, because I know I worked with people in the Sangh, and I have spoken to them. So it's, in one way, it is surprising that the current prime minister is not doing anything about this. One. Second, it's also not surprising because for a long time, the Sangh and all of them have particularly consistently, taken a secular stand. It's just that we didn't see them as being secular. We thought that they would be working for Hindu causes, but they haven't actually. Historically, they haven't done that. Second, I think Urvi also spoke about the Kashi, the district. Your one. I think Surajit, you spoke about the Kashi corridor. Much before all of this came into the news, right in the beginning, about 4 years ago, I wrote an article in India Facts where I asked some very very pertinent questions about what was happening in the name of Vikas. Where I pointed out that Kashi is a city that is held up by Shiva himself on his Trishul. You don't toy with a city like that. You know,
right.
every stone is Shiva. Shiva lives in every stone, and Shiva lives in every house. When that is the state, how do you justify breaking down temples and breaking down murtis, vigrahas, to build a corridor, which apparently, and I read about what the corridor is going to be doing, and I even pointed that out in my article where it says, you will have a laser and light show. I'm assuming that it's going to be very similar to what happened in Ayodhya, where we had diyas also, and we had a very, very, you know, very,
Yeah,
very ugly,
it will
ugly
be a
laser show.
spectacle. It will be a
Yeah, so
spectacle. As
yeah,
Jay Sai Deepak says, it will be a pradarshan, not a darshan.
yeah, so yeah, I think precisely it will be a
Yes.
pradarsan and not a darshan. And the whole idea of most of our
Mm.
kshetras is that in order to reach the kshetrajna, the knower of the kshetra, you need to go through a lot of difficulty. Why is it that you walk to Sabrimala? Why is it that you make all of these? Why do you make these difficult treks? You can't say that we are beautifying Kashi and making it easy so that there are. So this is not a. So what we are doing is what used to be, we are taking the heart out of the entire place and replacing it with all of these museum pieces, where you'll have foreign visitors coming and walking through those corridors, and essentially that's all we're doing. So we are and all of this is being sold as promotion of Indian culture and all of that. We saw that in Jallianwala Bagh also.
Right,
How the
right.
I've personally visited that
And
place, and I've
even
seen.
really there in
Yeah,
Jallianwala Bagh, even religiosity was not involved.
yeah.
And even then they messed it up. Yeah,
Yeah, and you had those murals which the walls spoke of the tragedy that the day signified. Today the walls have been reduced, those murals. So I think there are multiple moving parts that we seem to be grappling with, and whereas we are finding that this government, like I mentioned in an earlier panel discussion also, lacks both the intellectual heft, lacks the cultural grounding, and also is simply not bothered, and seems to think that the Hindu votes is forever in its pocket, and they can do as they please. And therefore they're seeing what they're also seeing, and I'm seeing this, is that there is a tremendous demographic shift that is happening within the country. There's an Islamic demographic shift. It's called the Islamic demographic tipping point internationally, which is pegged at about 25%, and we are very close to it. Our census are not telling us the truth. We are very close to the Islamic demographic tipping point, which is typically at 25%, and after 25%, things start going south in most countries where this has happened. I think this government is starting to recognize that they will not be able to stay in power without appeasing that particular minority group, and therefore all of this is happening. I'm beginning to think on those lines now.
Urvi, would like to add something to that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Ramesh, sir, whatever he said, that at the end of the day, um, I just want to reiterate basically that as a Hindu, when you don't get enough encouragement from the people whom you have chosen, and then you have institutions, educational institutions, and then these entertainment institute, not really institutions, but this entertainment sector, which is after Hindus. I mean, I was shocked. Leave alone Diwali. That okay, only pollution is kind of, it gets aggravated during the Diwali. We are told, the Hindus are told, to go leather free during Raksha Bandhan. And I mean,
even in my wildest imagination, I cannot imagine a leather rakhi. Yes.
yes, exactly. I mean, go leather free during Raksha Bandhan. So, and then like Ramesh sir said, that we are caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, and yeah, we really have to do something about it. And I think
Right.
mostly, at least in my opinion, we really have to go back to our roots, to our dharma, to wearing our tilak, to wearing our Raksha Sutra, because personally, I went to a convent school and I was asked, to abandon my religious symbols
Yes. Yes.
because,
And
yeah,
now
you're not allowed to
even
put
the
mehndi.
Mangal
Yeah.
Sutra you wear, even the Mangal Sutra you
Yes,
wear is being targeted with
Yeah.
woke
is
messaging
being, yeah.
by the corporate
I mean,
sector,
the
of
other
course.
day, yes, everything. And then we have a government who doesn't really care about, whether we live, whether we die. What do we do then? And also, I think internationally, we have to acknowledge the fact that um, we are a victimized community, the Hindus. I mean, I really like the Jews in this aspect where they have actually told the world that, look, this is what has happened to us. And here, nobody says that. Nobody talks about the genocide that the Hindus are continuing to face until now. Nobody talks of our destroyed temples. Nobody talks about, the rapes that our women have had to go through.
Right.
So we
Right.
have got to really acknowledge the past, and then we've got to glorify ourselves that despite all these attacks, we have continued to survive and we will continue to do so. But then, yes, acknowledging the past is very important, and I don't see the government doing anything about it. And that saddens me personally.
Ramesh, I'm glad you brought up Islam, the threat it poses, and people's gradual sensitization towards it. But somewhere down the line, don't you think that Christianity perhaps poses an even greater threat? Because everything said and done, with all Sarvadharm, Vadapav, and everything, we still cannot imagine a Muslim heading a state other than Kashmir, let's say. And Kashmir is no longer a state. When it will be again a state, that's a matter of the future. But as of now, in a state like Andhra Pradesh, we could not have imagined, despite the existence of Hyderabad there, which was there in it when it was undivided. Now it has gone to Telangana. We couldn't have imagined a Muslim chief minister, but we have a Christian chief minister there. So are people, are Hindus more tolerant about Christians? They are not sensitized enough to the threat that it poses. And I'm not considering the northeastern states where the Christians are a majority.
Yeah, I think it's you make an important point that
Yes.
Hindus consider Christians not even as a lesser threat, but not as a threat at all. I think that is where the key issue is. And
Mm.
for a long time, people did not know that Dr. Rajshekar Reddy himself was a Christian. They because
Yes.
he used to visit Tirumala, Tirupati, and he used to do all of these pilgrimages and all of that. So Christianity, by its very nature, is insidious. I mean,
Mm.
they are they will slowly grow on you, whereas Islam is more in the face, and
Mm.
that is where we seem to be missing the. For example, Tamil Nadu has got more Christians than Muslims, in fact, in terms of
Yes.
population, and
Mm.
and and we continue to show in a census that they're only 2.5%, but my assumption is they're at least 8%, 8.5% of the population now, given the the crypto conversions that continue to happen
Mm.
across the board. I mean, and that is one. And like I said, the Islamic demographic tipping point also. And when it comes to Hindus, I think both of them will come together to and pose a common threat when it comes to that. Then later they might fight between them. So we must also understand that both of these Abrahamic religions are subsets of a larger global set. They're not actually minorities. They're not minorities in India because the Christians form part of the larger the Christian family of the world. The Muslims are part of the larger ummah of this one. So their first allegiance is, whether we like it or not, it's not nice. People will say that you shouldn't be saying this, but this is the truth, and the truth needs to come out. I think they owe allegiance first to their faith and then to the country. We have been consistently told that we are Indians first, not even and then Hindus. But I think that has to be flipped now. I think I've started to say very clearly that I'm a Hindu first, and my identity.
This is,
And
in fact, one of the things we come to hear of a lot from
yeah,
Hindus living in the United States. They
right,
say we are Indians. None of them say they are Hindus, which
absolutely.
is why
They won't say.
the Hindu consciousness is almost absent in the United States, despite quite a chunk of the workforce now going from India.
Yeah, because it's all about I'm spiritual but not religious and all of that. I think there has to be a movement where we start to become overtly Hindu, where we
Mhm.
I had a boss. I can speak about him now because I'm no longer working for that organization, where he used to come into his room and and then wipe off that little tilak that he had on his forehead. So I asked him once, why are you doing it?
Mhm.
He said, I'm not comfortable, wearing it. I said, why? And in the same project team that I was heading, I was heading. There was one Muslim, there were about 15 people in that team, and there was one Muslim who used to go 5 times a day. And we were in a startup, and we had to work long hours. And if we stayed the 24 hours or whatever, 12 hours or 13 hours, he used to do his namaz at every time, and he was allowed that. And in the same
Mhm.
organization, there was a Hindu who had worn that Sabrimala mala and the black dhoti, and the HR called him and told him he was not in my team, but they called him and told him
Mhm.
that he can't be wearing these kind of things. He can't be wearing that tilak. He can't come barefoot. He was coming barefoot. He had grown a beard and all that, and we had to go on calls with our American clients and
Mhm.
all of that. And he said, you can't do all of those things. Whereas this person was
Mhm.
allowed to grow a
Mhm.
beard, was allowed to do
This
namaz
is
five
this is
times.
kind of
And
strange, no? Because you
yeah,
just said that the client was American and not French. Because uh, in France, you're not allowed to even let a cross dangle outside your shirt in
right.
a public place, in a school, for example. It is strictly secular. You cannot
Hmm.
exhibit any religious symbol. So your client was not French; it was
No,
American.
no, no. He's not French. No, he's American client.
Strange. Anyway, yeah, yeah. So
So what
something,
yeah.
yeah.
So what I'm saying is that most of us, and I'm not saying us, most of us are ashamed of wearing our culture, wearing our dharma on our sleeve. I think we should start that. We must
Right.
We must wear our tilaks. We must wear our. I make it a point nowadays to go to office with my tilak and all of that, because it's critical that the reason why we are prevented from playing holy, prevented from playing crackers, is that a culture survives if it can dominate the public spaces. Abrahamic religion,
Right.
why do they do namaz on the streets? Because they want to dominate the public spaces, and it's clearly written in their book as well that if you're in a country where you are a minority, you might want to start slowly creeping up on public spaces where you start occupying them. Look at how much real estate the church owns in India today. I think it owns more real estate than even the railways, if I'm not wrong.
Mm, mm,
So
mm,
look
mm.
at the amount of real estate. Look at the state that we are in, that a school run by Hindus has to call itself St. Mary's Convent in order to attract students, because we've always thought that so what we have done is we've broken all of these things up. We said education, hand it over to
Mm.
the hand it over to the missionaries because they can do it well.
Yeah.
Government has cleared out of spaces where they should have been. For example, education should be driven by governments. They're not doing it. Our corporation
Mm,
schools,
mm.
government schools are pathetic. Uh, Defense, healthcare, education, all of these spaces we seem to have ceded to these people, and because we and our establishments have been captured by the leftists by and not by chance, but by choice, by the Indira Gandhi government, that clearly in for it was a quid pro quo. They wanted to hand it over to them so that they would get their support, and in doing that, and in the last 8 years, by not taking a single step in taking back our institutions, I think that it's criminal neglect on the part of this
Yes, yes,
government to
yes.
not done that.
Urvi, where Ramesh speaks about this Abrahamic source of, some kind of imperial religions. So always on an expansion drive. There is an irony there, because once either of these forces ensures that an ancient civilization is wiped out of the landscape, for example, in the Middle East, at the time of Muhammad, there used to be a lot of Christians there. You will hardly find Christians in Arabian lands now. You will not find them in Lebanon, which was a rich, it carried a rich Christian heritage there. You will not find Baha'is anymore. You will not find Parsis in what used to be Persia, and now it is Iran. So once they have ensured that the ancient civilization is wiped out, they cannot even sustain their own existence there. There, again, the Muslims drive them out. How do you see that? How do you see that? Urbi?
Yes, I think, yeah, first, I think this monotheist faith, they have, that's what my thinking is, that first, of course, they have some problem and some huge hatred against polytheists. So if you look at all the ancient religions, be that of Egyptian religion or Romans
Yes.
or,
Hmm.
Hinduism, okay, so they will try to wipe that out. And then the most barbaric of the two wins. So that is why you see a particular community
The
first
yeah, the more
wipes out.
barbaric you are,
Yeah,
the more appealing you are to that Abrahamic mass of people.
yes,
You're more appealing to them. Yes, yes. Another thing that I have
true.
noticed is that, and I'm very surprised about it, because we are discussing mainly the role of governments in this entire affair. These Christian institutions, a lot many of them have, I would say they are quite transparent about it. Maybe they exaggerate the figures a bit, but they have websites which clearly say that this is the target of conversion given to them for a particular year, and this is how much they have achieved. Based on their own admission, our government can take action against them. Why doesn't the government do that? Ramesh, Ramesh Urbi,
Uh,
both can
yeah,
take the question. Yes.
why don't they take action? I think, okay, there are two things. One, I think these numbers are in the open because they have been allowed to go about doing their conversions without, we talk about, fund taps having been turned off, and there is evidence to it. I mean, let's also give the credit where it's due. I know for a
Yes.
fact that certain NGOs are finding it increasingly difficult to get foreign funding today. I think that is something that we have to give credit to this particular government, because they have
Yes.
indeed done a few things have actually happened, but there's too little, you know, perhaps none, I won't say too late, but yeah, but little too late. And it's increasingly difficult for people to get foreign funds. And I am also, what's happened is they have done this in, it's like these covert ops of these American people, the kind of things that this government has done. That what's happened is that all of, before 2014, I saw, did we see this kind of attack against the Hindus? I think that is something
Right.
that we want to look at. We did not see it. So it's also true that there have been certain steps that have been taken by this government, which has set the alarm bells ringing. And one of the strongest
FCRA
steps,
compliance, FCRA
yeah,
compliance to be precise.
yes,
Yes.
one of the strongest steps, I believe, is the turning off of the foreign funding tap, which has happened. And I know it for a fact, because I know the number. I've seen the figures and seen the numbers, and so that has happened. Second is, even these even these small public displays. Just look at how the whole group reacted to, Prime Minister Modi, wearing that tilak and all of that yesterday. I
Yes.
said, Ramchandra Guha tweeted saying, Prime Minister of a country cannot make an overt display of his religiosity, is what he said, or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing what he said. So something of that. I see so what's happening is that there are two teams here. One, some of us who want more action, and we're not seeing it because we know, and it's not happening because this particular government and the people who are attached to them do not really understand, or the scope of the danger, and all of the things that need to be done if you want to establish a Dharma Rajya, or I won't even say Rama Rajya, I'm saying a Dharma Rajya. So that they do not understand. They do not understand either the need for it, or for that matter, this one. The second big mistake that they have done is to raise one man to a level where he cannot be criticized. I think that is a crucial mistake, because it now we know that if we do not have somebody who can swing the votes like Modi can, and that is a crucial problem. So now what's happening is, neither can you criticize him within the party or outside, and you're also sold the story that if he goes, then the whole edifice would collapse, and therefore you would have these people who would take over, and we will face more trouble. I'm saying all the let's face that also. I think so. So there are the multiple issues that that are at play here, and which none of us is able, which this neither the government is understanding, nor are the actually we are on the we are in deep trouble actually, and we seem to be. And I'm expecting things to turn really south by about 2026, 2027, when Modi will not be able to swing the votes, or he won't be in. I think that is the time when we will really be.
One thing, even as the ground slips beneath this regime, as people who are pro-Hindu but no longer pro-BJP or pro-Modi, that breed is constantly growing. But talking a bit more about some of the good things that Ramesh pointed out that this government has done, for example, come down heavily on FCRA violators. Along those lines, Urvi, if you can come in, there are indeed other steps like we could not have expected a CAA, Citizenship Amendment Act, from a Congress-led government. That certainly took a BJP government to bring that on the table. And I know the story behind that, because there was an active lobby, and the person heading it was a very good friend of mine. He has been Omendra Ratnu, to be precise. I can name him, and I have also interviewed him recently. Now, there is a group, he is a doctor, he leads a group in Rajasthan that works actively for the rehabilitation of Hindus who flee from Pakistan, is trying to do it for Hindus of Bangladesh as well. There are no Hindus left in Afghanistan to save. So anyway, he had been working with government functionaries, along with other RSS Swayamsevaks. Not only that, he tells me that in Geneva, in New York, two United Nations centers, people who are actively collecting documents of incidents of atrocities perpetrated on Hindus and giving a solid proof. It's not like an Op India article. It's like a copy of the FIR, names of the people involved, names of
Right.
the victims, their exact identity, etc. So behind the stage, it's the groundwork that the RSS boasts of, quote unquote, groundwork. That's their favorite phrase. It's not all hot air. There is some truth to it. Some people are working on it, and yet there is this disconnect. How do you see it? For example, if I take the Shabarimala example, between 2006 and 2018, they were in favor of entry of all women in the shrine. That was perhaps because of the ignorance of the nature of the shrine that Shabarimala is, which came from a North Indian viewpoint of Hinduism. In North India, we do not have shrines like that, where the Shasta, there is even the concept of a Shasta is absent in North India.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, so
So,
it might have come from ignorance.
and there are very few ancient temples also, functioning in North India also. The destruction
Right.
that.
So that we may perhaps excuse them by saying, all right, you did not know. Anyway, in 2018, you did a course correction. Good. But in other places, we are just struggling. For example, take for example, Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev. He was leading a campaign to free our temples. Now, suddenly a 6-year-old video of him, making a comment about Yashoda props up from somewhere, and he is discredited, and the whole movement is gone. You're getting my point?
Yeah, and I think, sorry, yeah.
Yes, I think Urvi is muted. Yes.
No, no, Ramesh sir, please continue. Please,
Yeah.
please continue.
No, a couple of things. One of the things I've been tracking for quite some time, and there is a three-part article that I've compiled so far, is the secular loot of Hindu temples. Now, when it comes to the secular loot of Hindu temples, I phrase this exactly like this because for a reason, is you will find that there is no difference in terms of how temples are looted, irrespective of the government that is in power. The BJP governments, you've seen it in Jharkhand, you see it in the Chardham and all of those things where they take over temples. And, then there is that 500 crore loan that the Fadnavis government took from the Shirdi Sai Sansthan, which they said, they would not, which is interest free, and there is no, time frame in which they have to return, which means they will never, I mean, you can assume that it will not be returned and all of that. And consistently, if you track the Tirupati, if you track Kollur Mukambika in Karnataka and all of that, 70% of the funds are funneled, 70 to 80% of the funds, or even 90% of the funds are funneled into for government work. Another thing that I also noted is that in Karnataka,
Tamil Nadu, sorry to interrupt, in Tamil Nadu, it's actually sanctioned by law. You can usurp that money. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
They even admitted to melting temple gold recently.
Yes.
And
yes.
For the last 14 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the security, or the watchman in the Chidambaram temple gets a government salary of somewhere around the range of 15,000 or 16,000, whatever, I don't know. This was about 2-3 years back when I was tracking that story. Whereas the Purohit there gets a salary of say some 1,800, 2,000. How will that person survive? You have the temple here in Karnataka, which is another government temple, which is also and you have Purohits getting salaries of 2,500 rupees a month. They also have a family. How will they do it? So what's happening is at one end you loot the temple of all its wealth. And the other end, you also, you install CCTV cameras. You say we will put Paytm counters there. You'll make digital payments so that the Purohits can't get anything. So how will these people survive? So what will happen is a system that was self-sufficient, where it meant that women and children and families could come to the temples, where temples were living ecosystems of kalalayas, shikshalayas, and teaching, and all of those things. The entire ecosystem has been destroyed over time, and it continues to be destroyed as we destroy the temple ecosystem, because temples were banks. We know that historically they funded the Chola camp and the Navy campaigns, and all of this. Everything has been systematically destroyed, and we've continued to destroy it, even as the British did that. And so what's happening is that they are consistently saying that the state will take care of will keep taking away all that the Hindu claims, all of the cultural, religious,
Right.
all of those things of the Hindus. Whereas just because they are minorities, they would be outside the ambit of the government control, which means that you do not have. So, for example, if we come out with the Sangh would say, why don't you come out on the streets? They'd call us keyboard warriors. You're only typing on, do that. But the moment we come out, we are arrested. It happened in Delhi.
Yes.
So
Maybe we are supposed to come out in large numbers, as formidable and huge numbers like the devotees of Lord Ayyappa did in Kerala, in streets of Kerala.
yeah.
So it cannot be a group of 200 or 500 people. It has to be thousands, maybe lakhs of people. If they pour
Yeah,
into the streets, something will work
yeah,
out.
And
Yeah.
also,
and
Yes. Yes,
sorry,
Urvi.
yeah,
and also, I think, like Ramesh sir said, keyboard warriors, whatever. It's
Hmm.
thanks to the keyboard warriors, the same warriors, who actually make people aware, who particularly make Hindus aware of so many things
Yes.
happening around them, so many things that are actually threatening their very existence. It's actually the keyboard warriors who have done everything for the upliftment of the Hindu culture.
And it is not that we
So,
are
yeah,
averse to street
I think we have to
action. We
give
have done
credit.
that in the past. We have done that in the past.
Absolutely.
We don't
Right
even have
from taking up
fake
the,
profiles on social media where we own up whatever we write. We have our real names displayed on social media handles. We don't
yes,
use anonymous handles, and we take the responsibility
yes,
of things
we
that we write.
like
Yes,
people
yes,
like
yes, Urvi.
you, people like Ramesh sir, people like Pankaj Saxena, all of them, they are, putting their own time, own efforts, their own hard-earned money to a greater cause. So anyone who says, oh, the virtual warriors or keyboard warriors, I think they should just zip it up because they also
Yes.
they haven't been doing anything.
Right. And the regime, the government has to be under pressure all the time, no matter how well it performs, because otherwise complacency will set in. The government has to be told by friendly forces, because when the inimical forces tell them, they'll mislead it to another direction.
yeah.
Well, despite all that Modi does and Yogi Adityanath does, the left is not happy. Just like Muslims, even the left is not happy. No, you are not doing enough. Yes, yes, Ramesh.
I think, yeah, yeah. I think what these people don't understand is that we are not here to keep the BJP in power. We are here to ensure that the government that we elected does the things that they promised that they would do. That's all it is. What is happening is most of the people who don't like people like us questioning them think that they don't understand how democracy works itself. If you want to make democracy work, you need to hold the government of the day accountable to its promise and to the base that brought it to power. I think that is critical. So that's all we're doing. To say, but what's happening is the moment we start asking questions, our you will be called they will use a term like trad. They'll say you're a trad,
Mhm.
and therefore you don't want to, and you don't want vikas. You don't want.
Which is actually a kind of, I would say, a misnomer,
Yeah,
because I know people on this side. Not all of them are traditionalists. Not all
right.
of them are traditionalists. Yes, yes, yes. Continue, please.
And there is and even if we assume, okay, and there is nothing wrong in tradition. The whole
Hmm.
word tradition means that this is something that has come. It's something that we inherited. It's part of our heritage, And it's been passed on from one generation to the next only because there was great value in it.
Yes.
Our elders saw value in it. We must see value in it. By calling it a waste of time, or there is a particular generation, my parents and their parents, for example, that have to take the bulk of the responsibility for where we are today. And I say this,
Yes.
including my own parents, for example, in the sense that,
Yes.
they were the ones who said, focus on your studies, focus on this, get a job, do this, and don't do all of these things. And in doing that,
Mm.
we lost our connect with our own culture, with who we were and who we are. And in losing that, the ground from beneath our feet shifted. And now
Yes.
we are trying to bring it all back, and it's a huge task that
But
we're struggling with today.
I find it a bit sad because I had started journalism as a science correspondent, and all the nuclear physicists, all the ISRO scientists I know are deeply religious people. So their studies did not take them away from their faith, away from their tradition. And even before every satellite launch, before every missile test, our scientists do a very vidhivat puja
Yeah, I
and
think
go about it. Yeah, yes, yes,
absolutely. I think Swami Vivekananda, says it beautifully. He says when physics is pushed to its frontiers, and again paraphrasing, it melts into
mm,
metaphysics. And and and
yes,
and therefore, I think that's the reason why the people who pushed it to the limits, like Einstein, for
mm,
example, all of them were
mm,
deeply religious as well. Uh,
yes.
you look at Feynman or any of those people, they were not, they were. I think
Yes.
science beyond a
Einstein
point.
was constantly seeking. Yes, yes.
Right.
He was a
Yeah.
bit amused with religion, but he was constantly seeking. He
Constantly
did not
seeking. Yeah.
rubbish religion like Karl Marx did.
Right. Right. Right.
Yes,
So it's
yes.
it's only the pseudosciences where science is attached as a suffix. For example, social sciences and all
Hmm.
of those things, except computer science, and all of these things which have science as at the end instead of science at the beginning, are typically,
Hmm.
they're the ones who would rubbish all of these things.
Right, right. Urvi, how do you see it uh, if you go back to your days as a girl? Because there are some additional directives that parents give to girls, which probably, the daughters have to face more than the sons. So, other than, if I am told, if my parents tell me, don't be so overtly Hindu, perhaps your parents told you something more. इसके बाद शादी करना कराना दिक्कत हो जाएगी, something like that. कुंवारी बैठी रहोगी, something like that. Yeah, Urvi?
No, 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 no. I think I've been very lucky because I was raised by my grandfather, and
Uh,
he was a
no,
very religious man.
I
So
was not being
that's
literal,
really good.
not your family to be
Yeah,
precise. I was not
but
being literal,
but
but it
but
happens in
but no,
families.
no.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's
Mm,
yeah. But now when I go, I recently got married, so I love wearing my bindi. I love wearing my sindoor. I love wearing my religious marital symbols everywhere I go. So now you hear these woke women, especially because I
mm,
can speak in English. So if you can speak in English, if you can converse in English, then you're expected to be a woke person. You're expected to be very liberal. You're expected to disparage Hinduism. So recently, I went with some cousins of mine to a gathering, and of course, I knew that my cousins, who are at a very impressionable age, they are 16, 17. Anyway,
mm,
so this lady in her I really didn't like her, so I'll just call her this menopausal lady. She comes to me and she says, "Oh, you're wearing all these bichwas and piles, and
mm,
you're modern and all of
mm,
those stuff. I mean, you don't really need this." I said, "Yeah, well, auntie, I really love my husband. My husband is a delicious piece of pie, and my religion has given me this
mm.
acknowledgement. Is yours ugly? You should really be ashamed by not wearing all these things."
Mm,
So, um, my cousins, they got really impressed and they said, "Yes, this is how it should be." And I teach young girls. to wear their
This
religious
is another
symbols with
solution,
pride
you know.
and
Yes,
speak.
yes,
And I
yes.
think,
Assert
and
yourself.
also that I
Yes,
think that women should be far more assertive as far as religion is concerned.
Absolutely.
Because once a woman goes lopsided, everything falls down, falls under. Women should be
right,
all the more aggressive and assertive. I would say aggressive in pursuing their religion. Very important for
right.
women, Hindu women particularly.
Right. So, and
Hmm.
as far as the government role is concerned, like if I may bring the example of my son, he does not go to a Christian school. He goes to Kothari International. And the right on the first day when I stepped into the premises of the school, I found beautiful portraits, handmade portraits of Krishna on all the walls. And I was so assured I have come to the right place for my son's admission. And so far, there has not been any propaganda. And when there was a hint of it, all the parents, so I'm sure they had similar considerations in mind when they put their children in the school. They howled so loud in protest that the school administration, which had just, I would say it was a case of aberration in the middle of it. So they rolled the policy back. So it was another of those Sarvadharm Vada Pav instances, which none of the parents were ready to accept. But at the same time, you know, the Durga Puja has just concluded, and I live in a very large housing society where there is a separate Bengali community, and they actually had a clash with other Hindus of the society because of you know, a distinct certain distinct practices in Bengal. For instance, eating non-vegetarian food, which comes from the tradition of Bali, Pashu Bali. While that has been discontinued, especially on the day of Mahanavami, it is considered, in fact, auspicious to have some meat, and that is the Bengali tradition. But then, once they separated, now there is a Bengali Hindu lobby in the housing society and a non-Bengali lobby, which is much larger. And you know, I was very surprised to know that now that they have no more hinges with the rest of the Hindu community, it is going woke. So in a WhatsApp group, which is exclusively Bengali, they started this campaign of no firecrackers in Diwali. And I was furious there. Invariably, most of them had concerns for their pets. Otherwise, you know, they consider the whole housing society a loo for their pets and make life terrible for other residents. But on that particular day, on Diwali, which comes once a year, you have to defer to their dogs. so so that was the irony of it. But the thing is, you know, we are in the last few minutes of this program. So let's talk about solutions. What we are looking at is assertion from lobbies, and this is beyond a keyboard war. It is like forming committees, forming associations, approaching the government saying, this is our set of demands. But in a recent instance, one such thing fizzled out. For example, the Hindu Charter of Demands. We no
Yeah.
longer hear about it. And everybody who was a signatory there is silent now. So,
No,
so lobbying
I was
itself,
no, no,
yes,
I was also a signatory, so I regret having
right,
signed it. Okay. Mm.
yes,
So yeah, no, the issue was that no, I think yeah, a couple of things. I think so one of the things that I strongly think is that this dharma, the Hindu dharma, cannot be kept alive unless it is practiced. It begins with that. I think if each individual starts practicing what he or she should be doing in terms of the actual core practices, I think there will be a tremendous upsurge of Shakti. I think that is what this
right,
society needs. I think our Hindu society needs Shakti, individual and collective, and it starts with the individual.
both, yes,
And
yes,
yeah, I think that is something that we have to push for. Second, I think in public we have to reclaim public spaces. I think that's crucial. Third, I think we must be unapologetic about being Hindu. Wear it on your sleeve. in the way you dress, in the way you speak, in the way you conduct yourself. And for example, one of the little things that I've started to do is my I used to have separate calendars, my personal calendar as well as the official calendar. I've merged the two now. So, for example, if now if anybody sees that calendar, they will see that 4:30 a.m. will be meditation, 5 o'clock write Vishnu Sahasranama, 5:30 do Sandhya Vandana. I like to schedule everything like that. So I've added that. So so this is a public calendar that anybody can see. So when they see, see all this. I think these are small things, but they go a long way. When you're unapologetic and you're not worried about being seen as Hindu, I think that is crucial.
Urvi, wouldn't you say we have started taking baby steps in this direction that Ramesh is talking about? Things
Yes,
are
we
happening in
have,
society,
because
right?
now,
Yes, yes.
yes, definitely. And I see my friends, I'm 30 right now, and therefore I have friends in the same age group. And now I see that, yes, they wear their religious symbols. They're not ashamed to wear their religious symbols, and something that I have actually gained, being in presence of you and especially Ashish Dhar. I actually learned something amazing from him after listening to one of his talks, wherein he said that you've got to be the most intolerant minority. So this is my message to the youth, the Hindu youth, that even if you find that you're surrounded by wokes, make sure that you are the least tolerant minority, the most intolerant minority. You don't have to give away your religious symbols, you don't have to give your religious ideologies, and also you've got to counter them. Don't care if they are your relatives, do not care if they are friends of your father's friends, mother friends, whosoever friends. Ultimately, it is just your dharma that will come to your aid. That's it.
Right, right. And let me assure the audience that it is very easy to overpower the woke. I'm not asking you to get into fisticuffs.
True.
I'm talking about
Very easy.
arguments. Their knowledge
Yeah.
is so shallow, so very pathetically shallow, that within 5 minutes you can put one to shame. They're terrible about the scriptures. Forget about the scriptures. They are terrible even in the political knowledge of the country. So it's easy at an individual level, at a collective level, perhaps. I would say that leftists have shown the strength of unity time and again. So even when we form lobbies, we form associations, etc., it cannot be just one Sadguru. It has to be a lot of dharma gurus coming together and
Yeah.
taking along all the disciples and pressing their demands. We want this. We can no longer be trampled upon. We cannot anymore be taken for granted. And in instances where the government also is ignorant about what being Hindu is, primarily, it has to be educated, and we are trying our best to perform that role. Thank you very much for joining this session. Thanks a lot, Ramesh and Urvi, for
Thank
enriching
you.
us with your thoughts. We'll all see you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, with another topic of the day. It has to be always for India, and India is unthinkable without Hindus. Vande Mataram.
Thank you. Thank you.